So the Trump and Musk people are currently defying the courts, and essentially we have a constitutional crisis brewing. I want to go over the details of what's going on, and let's just jump right in. So this is the headline from the New York Times. It says, Trump administration live updates. Justice Department stonewalls judge on deportation flights. We talked about this with the Brown professor situation. This is with the situation sending Venezuelans to El Salvador. Basically, the Trump and Musk people are trying to put people on planes as fast as they can and get them out of the country, even though the courts are saying, hold on a minute, what about due process? And that's where, it gets dicey, because essentially you have, the rubbing up of the, two branches of government here, and Trump's basically ignoring the checks and balances, right? This is core to our democracy, guys. And I understand if you love Trump, you're like, screw the courts, screw the judges, but I just listen to yourselves. I mean, seriously, listen to yourselves. If Trump and Musk are doing the right things, what's the hurry, right? Also, you have this here, judge seeks sworn declaration from Justice Department in deportation case, right? At issue was whether plane loads of alleged members of the Tren de Aragua gang were deported despite the judge's order to turn the planes around. It is a very, very contentious issue, because the way that the Trump and Musk people they'll say, whoa, well, you're just soft on crime and you're soft on gangs. And I want to rephrase it, because a lot of this stuff is all about how you frame the argument. So I want to make it clear. I'm pretty sure, I'll say very sure, 100% sure, none of us like criminals, right? None of us want anyone to be hurting Americans, these kind of things. Let's start with that baseline. Then the other question would be, okay, let's say you identify people, you say, okay, these are criminals. Then normally, just a basic procedure, you got evidence, you show that to a judge or whatever, say, okay, the evidence looks good, send them off, whatever you're going to do. The issue becomes if you do things so quickly and no one can actually see what evidence or intel that you have, because I think that's the case that the Trump and Musk people are making, is, hey, we got intel. Well, show it to us. Because there are some people who are claiming they're not part of said gang. And if you guys understand what I'm saying, I give you an example. Just make it really simple. Do you want the Trump and Musk people just to search your house whenever they want without a warrant? They say, oh, we don't need any warrants. We don't need any evidence. We just don't like you, right? That's the kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Or they could say, oh, well, we have intel, but we're not going to show it to you. Do you understand the importance of this stuff? Because again, that's the way our system works, right? The court should be able to say, hey, slow down a minute here, which is what they are saying, but the Trump and Musk are just ignoring this stuff. So here, for example, we'll just read through this. It says, a federal judge Monday, right, this is just happening, ordered the U.S. the U.S. Justice Department to provide a sworn declaration, right? Someone's going to put their name on this, declare a sworn declaration by noon Eastern Time Tuesday, with details on how plane loads of alleged members of the Tren de Aragua were deported, despite his order to turn the planes around. So the judge basically wants to hold someone accountable for who ordered this stuff. Tell me all the details. What are the chain of events? The hearing on Monday centered on whether the government complied with Judge James Boasberg's temporary restraining order, and included a debate about when exactly the order was issued and where U.S. custody over deportees ends. Also discussed whether an oral order versus a written order holds the same weight when it comes to restraining government action. I mean, it gets really complicated, right? So like the Trump people are like, oh, wow, it wasn't written down on paper. I know you said it, but I'm not going to, honor it unless it was written down, that kind of stuff. Or, oh, the planes were already over international waters, and since they already crossed international waters, we don't have to listen to you. Like, this is the kind of stuff that we're dealing with. You can take a look at this. This is another headline here. The judge who tried to stop the deportation planes is not happy with the Trump administration. Now, we would go through the exchange between the judge and the Trump lawyer. You'll kind of get a sense of like the stuff that's being said. And this is where it's important to go through some of the details of these things so you guys understand the struggle for power. So, for example, it says here, the federal judge sharply questioned the Trump administration Monday about its decision to rush 3 planes carrying Venezuelan nationals out of the U.S. airspace, right? So again, Trump and Musk people are trying to do this as quickly as possible, right? Do it before the courts find out what's going on. Under Trump's unprecedented invocation of wartime deportation powers against a criminal gang. Okay, so he's invoking this old law saying we're under attack. and then claiming all these people are part of said gang. The judge then, federal district court in Washington, was clearly galled by the government's actions and legal arguments in the case, particularly its assertion that an order he issued Saturday to turn around the planes, right? The judge is like, got to turn these planes around. Any planes carrying such deportees had no force once they were outside the U.S. territorial waters, right? So the Trump people say, well, we crossed, into international waters. You're, court, you judge, you have no say over us. And obviously that's going to be pretty contentious because just think about this, right? You're like, hey, turn the plane around and come right back. Oh, well, we're already crossed, right? Do you guys see the issue here? Only minutes before and then this is where the timeline comes down, and this matters in the Brown case as well, to where like the Trump people say, well, we didn't know about your order, therefore we didn't disobey it, or well, when we heard about your order, it was already too late. We already crossed the line. See this kind of stuff. Only minutes before the hearing Monday, the Justice Department took unusual steps of asking federal appeals court to remove Boasberg from the case altogether. The appeals court did not immediately act on that request. It was interesting because, and I mentioned this guys before, and if you haven't seen it, just take a look at it. It's there's a movie out there called The Apprentice. It's about Trump's early years, and it's basically about how Trump's lawyer when he was young, Cohen's his name, Roy Cohen, how he trained Trump to essentially be a gangster. And I remember one of the most interesting part of the movies is he's like basically saying, don't worry about the law, play the judge, know the people involved. And so in this situation, say they're like, oh, well, I don't think that judge is going to be favorable to us. We got to get him removed. We got to get him replaced, right? So that's sort of kind of what they're mentioning here. The Trump people and must be able to try to do this all the time. Don't show up to court, or show up to court and don't say anything. Try to delay, delay. And again, in any of these situations, guys, and I just try to give you honest opinion on this stuff. If they're doing things the right way, why are they always such in a hurry? And that's Trump and Musk. They're always doing things in a hurry. They're always doing things on a weekend. And this is becoming a very serious thing when you're ignoring courts. And I want to make it, again, extremely clear. If there are gang members who are dangerous in the USA, I have no trouble and no problem with deportations. I got no problem with that. I want to make that clear. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I, can mass deport 200 people all at once with no right to, fair hearing or judge looking at evidence to make sure that you're doing it the right way. The same way that, I want to make it clear, like if I think someone's doing something wrong, get a warrant for a judge, go, search their house or whatever. But I don't want to live in an environment in the USA where they can just do stuff whatever they want without any sort of warrants. If you guys understand, this is rule of law and due process, and this is fundamental to our system. It's very important. Let's talk about more, and you kind of see more of this. At moments during the 45-minute hearing, so it was relatively short though, but they did talk, the normally unflappable judge raised his voice. So I guess this particular person, if you know him, doesn't usually get angry. Rejecting the Justice Department's contention the government had exceptionally urgent need to move the plane. So the government's like, oh, well, we got to hurry and get to El Salvador, right? So that's the argument they'll make. Just like what's the hurry, right? Boasberg implied that the government had intentionally hurried the planes off the ground on Saturday afternoon because the government knew he had scheduled a hearing at 5 p.m. Saturday, right? So yeah, I'm kind of with the judge in this one. It certainly sounds that way. I mean, let's see what the Trump people say. Quote, any plane that you put into the air in or around that time, you knew that I was having a hearing at 5, right? That says that the judge was frustrated when he said that. Just think about this stuff. It's funny when I read through this stuff, and you have to remember all these things. These are human beings. It just sounds like the way Trump and Musk are doing things are kind of like the way children come up with arguments. You guys know that stuff, like the children stole the cookies out of the cookie jar, and all the things that they try to argue about it. And if you guys have kids, you guys kind of know the arguments that kids make. More was to see here. Boasberg also grilled a Justice Department lawyer over a key stretch of time on Saturday between two orders Boasberg issued. So in the first order, Boasberg issued orally from the bench, the judge directed the government to, quote, immediately turn around the planes carrying deportees subject to Trump's proclamation. So that was the first order. So it was an oral thing. Hey, get those planes turned around. Wanted to review, the case. About 40 minutes later, Boasberg followed up with a written order in the court's electronic docket that lacks some of the detail in his oral directive. Interesting. So the The written one and the oral one's a little bit different. That's what I'm showing you guys here. And this is where it comes key when you follow any sort of legal case, right? Facts matter quite a bit. Deputy Associate Attorney General Abhishek Kambli claimed Monday that the government was free to ignore the oral order. Interesting. So there are two different orders, an oral and a written one. And then the government's, this would be the Trump people were arguing, okay, well, we only have to follow the written one. We believe that there was no order given orally. Okay, that's the argument they're going to make. So they're not honoring the first order of the judge, the earlier one. Remember that it has to do with planes taking off. An injunction is not ordered until it is written filing. I mean, and normally with this kind of stuff, you say, hey, we'll see how it holds up in court. And like literally we're in court. And so I hope you guys understand the constitutional crisis of this stuff. So it says Boasberg, an appointee of the President Barack Obama, was highly dubious. Quote, that's a heck of a stretch, the judge said. You can't violate the injunction if you don't like it. You can appeal it or you can seek to modify it, right? I mean, listen to this language and stuff. That's a heck of a stretch. You can't violate the injunction, right? If you don't like it, you can appeal it or seek to modify it. Boasberg also rejected the Justice Department's claim that he lacked any authority over flights once they cleared U.S. airspace. So he's disputing that. And this is the judge, right? So you have, again, a constitutional crisis, a debate between the Trump's people and the judge are two different, rulings on this, or ruling is the right word, because the court and the judge make the ruling, the lawyers and present the case. Quote, it's not a question that the plane was or was not in the United States airspace, the judge said, adding the power of the federal courts does not, quote, lapse at the water's edge or the airspace's edge, right? So Trump people are saying, we're in national waters, you have no jurisdiction. He's like, well, it doesn't matter. Campbell said the foreign policy concerns related to the operation were paramount. Okay, that's the argument that they're making. Quote, these arrangements were the result of intensive and delicate negotiations between the United States and El Salvador. And it's interesting because what they're referring to before, and actually Elon Musk put this stuff on his social media regarding El Salvador and the private prisons. And I don't know if private's the right word, but we'll just say prisons. And Marco Rubio is also pictured with the El Salvador leader. This is something that it's interesting because they're saying there's negotiations, and I'm just saying it's, with Marco Rubio and Musk is involved with this stuff. And then I think the USA paid $6 million to take these prisoners, is my understanding of it, to us in El Salvador. This whole thing is crazy, to be honest, the way this is shaking out, but that's why we're going through the details. It says here, the DOJ further frustrated Boasberg by refusing to provide almost any details about the deportation operation, right? So Trump must people do all this time. They'll say stuff like, I don't know, or I'll get back to you on that, or I don't remember. Like they just won't give you a lot of information. You're repeatedly invoking national security to defend the secrecy. So they're just saying, well, it's national security or it's classified. That's the kind of answer they're probably given here. So here's the judge says here, why are you showing up today not having answers to why you can't even disclose it to me? That was a question for the judge. As the hearing neared its conclusion, Boasberg demanded that the government answer by noon tomorrow, so it'll be tomorrow, a series of questions about the flights and the passengers, as well as exactly when Trump signed the proclamation calling for the alleged gang members to be expelled from the country. He ordered the case filing of more briefs and legal arguments in the case. And Boasberg told the government lawyers that, just to be clear, he'd write down everything he wanted them to address. Quote, my orders don't seem to carry much weight. We've been seeing this kind of stuff a lot with the way the Trump people interact with the courts. And I just wanted to read the language for yourself, because when you see this, it's like, wow, this is stuff that's going on. I'll just say this, in my opinion, and I make this all really clear when we do these kinds of videos. If Trump is ordering you to do something illegal, don't do it. Okay, I want to make that really clear. Don't do it. You will look back on that and you will heavily regret it. Do not be on the wrong side of the history of this stuff. Do not follow illegal orders. The other issue as well is like when the judge is saying, hey, I need an official declaration, like he's looking for someone to put their name on this kind of stuff. And remember talking about, say, the DOJ stuff with Musk, no one really wants to sign off on it, right? They want to do all these basically illegal, unconstitutional things, and no one wants to put their name on said things. And so this is where, we're going to see that. And this is always the same way, you talk about this kind of stuff. If you make whatever claims, do whatever actions, right? Try it in court. say it, tell it to a judge, right? Show up in at Congress and make your, make your claims. The way that Trump must do it, they try to skirt the courts, skirt the law, skirt the Congress, etc. And I think that's unacceptable and not democratic. And that's my opinion on this stuff. And I want to hear yours as well. So do appreciate your time, everyone. And I'll catch you on the next video.